Here we go. All right. Okay. Yes, we should be streaming now. We should be live. Hello. I'm Colin Davis. This is Solutio. And of course, I'm getting technical issues right as I start. But no, it looks like those went away. Well, maybe not. All right. So I will just, well, you know what? I'm going to have to try to fix this, unfortunately. This is what we call the virus. This is what we call the virus. Yeah, this is the virus. So let us figure out why that is happening. Zoom. Hello, Zoom. And Zoom, original Zoom. Right. Okay. Well, I can't tell you what it is, but I'm getting, I hope you guys aren't getting that. I guess we're going to have to wait until I get some feedback from you guys in the comments. And this is only my third stream. And so I of course, preparing everything perfectly. And then I start the show and then it's echoing in my head and can't hear the music and blah, blah, blah. So that is something that I'm going to have to just figure out. Let us check it out and see if we have a problem here. Let's see. No. Okay. Everything should be good with you guys. Okay. That's how we're going to operate. Everything's good with you guys. Why I'm getting feedback, don't know. We'll figure that out later. But so, okay, welcome to Solutio, Colin Davis, SolutioPodcast.com, ShadowTechAlchemy.com. Thank you for being with me, or thank you for watching this at a later time. So what we're doing here, and you're probably going to hear me reiterating what the program is about, what I do, why I'm doing this broadcast. The whole podcast field is very crowded and all of that. But the fact of the matter is that there's nobody doing what it is that I'm doing. And, if I could find somebody that was, I would join them. I'm what I guess you could say I'm a reluctant leader. But so let me just explain what we do here. So we're doing inner alchemy. We're working on ourselves. We're individuating, using the Jungian term. We're very serious about it. We're dedicating our lives to this. We're dedicating our lives to cleaning up, to waking up, to growing up, to healing up. That's what we're doing here. We recognize on a personal level that we have a potential in this life, a soul code, you could say, in this life that may not be able to manifest in the way that it should unless we can get out of our own way, so to speak. And so what that means is that whatever complexes we have, whatever neuroses we have, whatever old wounds that we're dragging around, whether they were formed in our childhoods or whether they were formed in our parents' childhoods and passed on to us, triggered by our early environments, wherever they come from, it's our job. We take responsibility for the fact that it's our job to work on those, to clean those up, to integrate those parts, those dissociated parts, or to work on those allergies, so to speak. And because otherwise, then we go into the world immature. We go into the world triggerable. We go into the world not being our full potential. And other people, especially young people, need us to be grown-ups, need us to be psycho-spiritual grown-ups. And right now, in this current stage of Western civilization, we have a lot of people who are children in adult bodies, especially and including the leaders of our civilization, children in adult bodies. People who don't have self-awareness, okay? So people who are just acting and reacting and they get together in groups, they get together in little cliques, and they convince themselves that their ego ambitions are the greatest thing for themselves and for humanity, and then they try to push them on other people against everyone's will. And you know everything about how that works in politics and how that works in every other way on the world stage. And so what we're saying is that we can't expect those people to grow up if we're not growing up. And what most people are doing unconsciously is looking for another surrogate parent to tell them what to do or to take care of them. And we're saying that's obviously not happening. No one's coming to take care of us. We have to do that ourselves. So we have to do that politically, yes, but we have to start with ourselves and with our families and with our personal and local situations. Everything starts with yourself. You don't even really know what the world is other than what you perceive. And your perception is an effect of your own internal state. What you know is your own internal state. You know you. And so that's where you have to start with changing anything. With changing your reality, it starts with the control panel of your own psyche. And so you have to learn how to use the control panel of your own psyche. And of course, it's a work in progress. And for reasons we don't understand, how could we have gotten so advanced, biophysically and technologically and culturally, mentally? How could we have gotten so advanced and not have a manual for operating the human being? We don't have a manual. We don't know why that is. I mean, people can say, well, you can look to your religions, and your religions are basically the best we have for a manual, but they're not very clear, as we all know. And so we're all trying to interpret and everything. It's as if we were put here to figure it out. It's as if this is all a simulation and we're put here to figure it out and to play the game or to get on the stage and to improvise in this play. And so, okay, all right, that's what we're doing. We're going to figure it out. And so we take matters into our own hands. And that's what alchemy is. Now you have exoteric alchemy, where it's just sort of the predecessor to modern day chemistry. But then you have spiritual alchemy, internal alchemy. And that's where that is the mystical scientific art of inner transformation. So whether it's Western or Eastern or ancient or modern or whatever, any kind of practice and system that you use to understand your inner state of being, to understand your own psyche, and to be able to heal your psyche and mature your psyche, to refine your psyche. That's inner alchemy. That's alchemy. And so in the West, there is a tradition, there is an esoteric tradition that does this, that works with this, but it's pretty much been kept underground because of the monopoly of the church. And so in the East, it's a different situation. It's much more out in the open. There is a path of enlightenment. And all the Eastern traditions have some kind of understanding of that the human being can consciously work on themselves to enlighten themselves, to refine themselves. And whereas in the West, we have a different kind of a system here. It's more about redemption after life. And so, but the esoteric alchemical tradition or Hermetic philosophy of all time is something that Carl Jung studied very deeply and then brought into 20th century use and 20th century language. And so I believe that that's sort of our best starting point for updating our own internal operating system. Start with the manual that Carl Jung developed, right? And so that's what I do. And I don't call myself an absolute expert in Jungian psychology by any means, but I have a basic understanding of what the system is and the basic culture and worldview that is within that system, and the basic tools that were described and that were continued to be worked on by the Jungians, the scholars, and people who came after Jung and who continued on his work and developed his work. And so that's kind of my starting point. I start with the Jungian understanding in many ways. And now another big piece of where I'm coming from is that I've been working on myself for many years. I'm 56 now, and I've probably been aware that I needed to work on myself since I was probably 16, 15, but I didn't really get super serious about it until I was 35. And then when I was 43, I met Melissa Mari. Actually, I met her before that, but we started a relationship when I was 43. And that, I called it an alchemical relationship, because together we basically shared, first we shared everything that we had done on ourselves up to that point with each other. And then we started moving into psychoanalyzing each other using the psychospiritual knowledge and tools that we had. And then we continued from there on newer work. And what that ended up being, it just came through us, was an understanding of the shadow of the psyche. So we made it our business to understand the shadow of the psyche in ourselves first, and then to understand how it was described and how it had been worked out through Carl Jung's work and other Jungians, and then other individuals who were also coming at it from a slightly different perspective. And we looked at lots of different perspectives, and we made it our business to understand the shadow and to demystify it and to relate it to what we would call evil in the world, and find the connection between the shadow of the psyche of the individual and what we call evil, cultural evil in the world. And so we did that, and we did it in an integral or holistic way. And so we put out a book. I'll show you that book. It's called Shadow Tech, and we put that out in 2015, Cracking the Codes of Personal and Collective Darkness. You can get that on Amazon. And then later in 2024, I put out this book, which is Transforming Darkness, a Shadow Work Toolkit for the Red-Pilled Initiate. Try to get that in there out of the light. And I clarified some things that were in that book, and then I gave you a lot of shadow work practices, and I just tried to make it more concise and really clarify what we had worked out for the decade that we had been working on that subject. And then as some of you know, Melissa, who had already contracted cancer, cervical cancer in her past, that came back and took Melissa out in January of this year, January of 2025. And so that was a huge, a massive shock for me. And I have been recovering for this whole year. And then I spent much of the time making a movie about Melissa because she's such an important person to me, but I just think in general, objectively, because Melissa is, I feel like, the example for how to push the limits of healing yourself, of individuating, of raising your consciousness, of growing up, understanding your inner nature, and that she just was an absolute stoic hero of individuation in my mind. And so, and she was also just such an incredibly unique and talented artist, singer, performance artist. And so I put this movie together called Melissa Mari, Musical Alchemist of Stage and Psyche. And you can see the trailer at melissamarimovie.com. And if you want to see the full film, just send me a message or an email, and I'll send you the link to the full film. Right now I'm shopping it to film festivals, and so I don't have it just out there yet, but I will send it to you if you'd like to watch it. And so all of this work that was developed and that went into our books, lectures, workshops, was all developed with Melissa. And our relationship was an alchemical container. And so you'll hear me talking more about that, the details of that. If you watch the movie, that will give you a good overview, although it doesn't go into incredible depth because you just can't in 100 minutes cover everything that you need to cover. But so that's what's going on. Now, let me give you now the aspect of this that is, let's say it's the activist side of this, because Melissa was always a spiritual activist, and she put it all in her music. And then I'm more of a talker, and so I put it in speaking and in writing. But we, let me say it like this. I pulled this book out here. When our book came out in 2015, we knew that the Jungians had been talking about the shadow and that had been teaching people about inner development for years. We knew that. And we followed them. We're big fans of Robert Johnson, Robert Moore, Marion Woodman, Edward Whitmont, just on and on, the great Jungians. Later I found James Hillman, the great Jungians. And some of them are more activists than others. But what we did with the shadow tech was we explored the Jungian understanding of the shadow and other understandings of the shadow and put them together in current 21st century language, and in language that's not so incredibly academic and difficult to understand, and certainly not translated from German and all of that like Jung was. But so we did that, and we put that out there, and we thought that it would be well received. We thought that people would be thankful that we had gone in there and done some of that dirty work and clarified some things that weren't clear. But what we found out is that everybody was just deathly afraid of the subject. And so I actually remember Robert Moore saying about Americans that they are in manic denial of their shadows, which is true. But humanity in general is. And if you understand the way the shadow is created, and it's sort of a byproduct of the ego and the superego, and we'll talk more about all that stuff as time goes on. But then you understand that it by nature is antithetical to ego consciousness. It by nature is oppositional to ego consciousness. It's held in cognitive dissonance with ego consciousness. So when you try to go dig into it, first of all, it's difficult, and but then whatever you pull out, the average person is going to want to shy away from. It's medicine that most people don't want to take, and so that's what we found, and we found that it was much more difficult to get people to bite on it than we thought that it would be. Now, we were both sort of red-pilled people, so we were well aware of the shadow side of the culture, of the civilization. We're well aware of that, and we could see that there was millions of people waking up to the shadow side of the civilization. And so, but the issue with that is that everybody projects evil onto some other group. It's the New World Order, it's this or that billionaire, it's the government, it's this or that group or ideology and whatever it is. And so all the focus is it just continues the state of projection that we're already in, because projection is the way that we offload our shadow material. And so becoming aware of the shadow in civilization in society, in culture, is difficult in itself, and that's shown to us in the movie The Matrix, where we get the term red pill. But it's even more difficult to recognize that what we call evil out there in the world is the collective projection of all of our own shadows. And that the only way to mitigate evil in the external world ultimately is to integrate it within yourself. So you have to take responsibility for it at the personal level. And so that is just it's just a massive shock. And but if you can get through that, if you can get over that, and you can be, recognize that that's the case, and also recognize that integrating your shadow, working with your shadow, is not just something that you do for the rest of the world, but you do it to heal yourself. It's not that difficult to take seriously at that point. You realize, oh, okay, this is how I heal myself, and then in the process I heal the world. All right, that works. But a lot of people are still in denial. Most people are still in denial and want somebody to save them, somebody to fix them, somebody to cure them, somebody to take care of them. And it's understandable at a certain level, but to actually become psychospiritual adults, we have to take responsibility for that in ourselves. So I'm just going to pull up the chat here, and forgive me earlier for fumbling around with the system as I first got on there. But it's like, we call this the virus. I'll be talking more and more about that. But I'm noticing that this is how I'm gonna have to do the show. I'm gonna have to basically talk, and then I'm going to pause and react to your comments if I feel like I'm in a good place to pause. And then I'll talk to you and go to your comments, and then I'll go back to talking again, and then just in general we'll work it out, and we'll get a little community together. Hi, Sarah, and hello, Sarah, and let me see. So, hello, hi, Sarah. You can hear me? Yeah, in the beginning, it's so funny. It's just, this is just, of course, it would happen. I've tested the whole live stream 2 or 3 times without any issues, and then all of a sudden, it's just bouncing around in my head here, so you can see and hear me. Thank you so much for coming on, everyone, and for participating. And you didn't hear anything unusual. Yeah, so I think I do realize that everything's good on your end. I still have to figure out why on my end. Let's see here. Oh yeah, our friend from last time here. When you think about the Earth having a soul, yeah, oh right, you're reading that book, that book by Jung on that. It makes sense. Human beings are an integral part of it. I think we've always been here and always will be in some form or another. We're evolving together. Yes, we are the planet. We are growths of the planet. We are our organisms that have come out of the planet. You're welcome for sharing. Yeah, and I think I'll see more of your comments now. Now that I got the chat opened. Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure out how to get it all working. But so that's exactly right. Now, let me bring this up. I was going to bring this up. So this is a book I highly recommend it to you: Depth Psychology and a New Ethic by Erich Neumann, and it's got a foreword by Carl Jung in it, actually. So this came out in 1949. And by that time, World War II had ended, and the Jungians had a pretty good, solid understanding of the shadow and how it works, and how people collectivize, and they collectively project, and they displace and scapegoat and demonize other people, other groups. That gets them to a way to offload their own shadow material, and then they can go to war with those people, and they can push those people out and get a temporary reprieve, a temporary, they can temporarily feel better because they've extinguished evil out there in the world, but that's only temporary because the real cause of it is in their own psyche, and so it just comes back and then they have to dump it again some other way. And so it just goes round and round and round, and you just have one war after the next, one revolution after the next, one internal and or relational conflict after the next. And so because nobody wants to, at first we didn't know, we didn't have the psychological knowledge or awareness to even understand, how this was working psychologically inside of us. But once Jung and a few others really worked it out and tested it and figured out that their theory was correct, well, then Neumann wrote that book. And he said, look, so the way we've been doing this up to now, what he called the old ethic is the Christian ethic. The way we've been doing this up to now is that we've been projecting our shadows into the devil. The devil has sort of been a placeholder for our own shadows, our own darkness, our own primal nature, our own monkey nature, our own reptilian nature, and all of our sexuality and our power drives and our rage and aggression and all of these animalistic traits and drives. The devil was kind of being a stand-in for that. And before that, you would have actual scapegoats. You would actually put your sins onto a goat and send it out into the woods, or you would sacrifice it. And so the old ethic was that, and projection and wars and all of that. And he said, now that we understand the shadow and we have some basic understanding of how to integrate it, how to work with it, how to become aware of it 24/7, potentially you can, then we need to move into a new ethic of shadow awareness, where we take responsibility for our shadow material and we work on it, we individuate. So the Jungian term for inner evolution, for advancing your consciousness and healing, is called individuation. And so if we would all start to, or at least a number of us, a percentage of us, would take that seriously, then we'll be able to basically avoid catastrophe, because now everybody's armed with nukes and all of this, and that was especially scary back then. Everybody had, after the bomb had been dropped and all of that in Japan, and so the idea is we're too dangerous now, and so we have to move into integrating our shadows. And so that was his plea, that was his call. And Carl Jung himself tried to stay away from politics and ethics and preaching what people should do. He tried to stay in his lane, even though his lane was quite wide. He didn't want to get into a whole lot of other lanes and didn't want to be attacked more than he already was being attacked. And so Neumann put this out, but Jung wrote the foreword to it, and it's difficult. It's difficult to read, actually. It's the English, and is difficult. But if you have if you don't have any basic Jungian education, there's terms used in there that only Jungians will know. So, but if you do, it's very important that you read that, because this is, well, I think it is, and this is what Melissa and I were saying the whole time too, and this is what we were trying to get other people to do. And then when I saw this book and I saw, wow, so these are the top Jungians. This is Carl Jung and his top colleague, one of his top colleagues, making this statement, this plea, for us to become shadow aware and to live an ethical life of shadow awareness. And this is 1949, and this is almost unknown, this book. It took me years of looking at Jungian material before I actually heard Edward Edinger talk about this book in a lecture. And then I was like, oh my God, he's saying everything that we've been saying. And it's been, this was, 80 years ago or something. So the world didn't take it seriously. We took We took what, the physicists were saying seriously, right? We took Albert Einstein seriously, the theory of relativity and all those guys and all that stuff. But we didn't take the incredible discoveries of depth psychology seriously. And of course there are groups that do, but it did. Depth psychology, starting with especially Freudian psychology, did integrate into the culture, but Jungian psychology was much more difficult because of the materialism of the culture. And so and this understanding does not come out of Freudian psychology. It's an advancement on Freudian psychology. So you really have to go into Jungian psychology to get this. And academia pretty much rejected. It's so funny about the Jungians because they sit on the edge of academia. They still want to, have their credentials, have their degrees and offer, classes and stuff, everything that's applicable to academia, and sort of sit on the edge of academia. But academia as a whole has rejected the Jungians completely. Doesn't want to have anything to do with them. And so they should have just, like Steiner or whatever, just stay the hell away from there. But anyway, so yes, so there we are. And so where I'm at with it is it's been 12 years since Melissa and I met, and that was our 12 years of laboratory time. 12 years of taking the inner work very seriously, and of doing it in the context of a relationship. Right? So every conflict, after a while, we learned to do this. Every conflict became a lesson, became an opportunity to learn what was running the conflict in our own psyches. So we used Jungian terms like complex, autonomous complex, or we use a term from Paul Levy called Wetiko, or we use terms from IFS like parts, orphaned parts, or unattached burdens, and these kind of things from IFS, or Eckhart Tolle's understanding of the pain body, or just Jung's understanding of the shadow. We use these kinds of terms to try to interpret what is the sort of habitual addictive nature of conflict and what parts are getting fed. And we got to the point to where we became very sensitive to the onset of conflicts, and we started to be able to learn how to stop them ahead of time. Although I have to say, though, that if you do stop a conflict, if you do kind of become conscious of a complex that's running in the relationship, and you talk it out and you don't let it erupt, it will sit there in the background and try to get you at another time when you fall unconscious again. So you can't just really avoid it that way. So you have to get into the roots. You have to get into the actual, using IFS, the parts themselves. And you have to communicate with the parts, and you have to start learning to integrate the energies of those parts. And so that means you need to basically get very comfortable with feeling. And women are generally better at feeling, and men, and this is in general, are less familiar with the depth of feeling. This is just a generalization, but it's just archetypal in that way. And so men that want to do this kind of inner healing work and get down into the roots of their conflicts, the roots of their addictions, the roots of their triggerability, they have to learn to be able to process feeling, allow feeling, sadness, grief, guilt, fear, emotional pain of all kinds, and let it come up through their body and move through them. You have to do a lot of crying to do this kind of work successfully. That's, and I've noticed that people don't want to do it. They don't want to do that because they don't want to get dropped down into the underworld. And but the fact of the matter is that you're already getting dropped down into the underworld. Everybody has cycles. Everybody has these, everybody has their own pain body profile, so to speak. And it's having its feeding cycle from time to time. And you are going to be dropped down into the underworld. You are going to get psychosomatic symptoms. You are going to get sick. You are going to get all kinds of symptoms. You are going to have a terrible change of attitude or depressions or anxieties. Those things are going to cycle through. So you are already going to do that. There's no avoiding that. So, but what you do with this alchemy is that you take the opportunity when the cycle is up, when it's going, when the part is active, when the pain body is feeding, so to speak, you use that as a doorway into your psyche. The doorway is open at that point. And so you go down there. And so it's basically, it's like, deep sea divers that go down inside an underwater volcano. You go down in there and you study what's going on in there, and then you allow emotional energy to come up. You just give permission for it to come up, and it comes up. And so you have to be able to do that. This is not just work that you do intellectually in your head. That part is the analysis part, and not everybody needs to do this kind of analysis, this kind of scientific analysis. We needed to. This is kind of, we're kind of map makers. We needed to do that, but not everybody needs to do that. Let's see. Yes, absolutely. You can. I'll tell you what, with the book. So here's the deal. I'm giving away Transforming Darkness. Just go to shadowtechalchemy.com, sign up for the mailing list, and you get the PDF version of the book for free. So it's like, there you go. There's shadow work practices in there. My whole spiel is in there. All kinds of stuff about the shadow and how it works, its relation to evil, and everything like that is in there. Then, if that's working for you, then get Shadow Tech. That is on Amazon and in a couple different formats. So it's also on Etsy. All the links are there. You'll see it on the website. So anyway, yes, there you go. And it comes down, Sarah says it comes down to being afraid of death. Ultimately, at the bottom of all these cycles, of course, is the very primal animalistic fear of death. And that is sort of you could say that maybe that is the biggest elephant in the living room. And, but at the same time, it's kind of, we're so naturally dissociated from death that it's kind of like sitting there in the background behind the door. And we have to dissociate from it in order to survive. And we're so good at dissociating from death, it's just back there behind the wall. But in front of that wall is all this other shadow stuff, all this other childhood stuff, or stuff from our parents' childhood. Start looking at your parents' neurotic behavior and trigger ability, and start looking at how that you inherited stuff from them. Listen to how your parents will tell you stories about how they were traumatized, and then you'll go, oh yeah, that makes sense why you're like this. But then you'll say to yourself, but I wasn't traumatized in that way. That wasn't my particular situation, but I have the same stuff you have. Yeah, it was passed to you. That's epigenetics. And that's kind of new, but now we know that. So that's a big part of this work. And we call that emotional shadow work, we call that emotional processing, which is kind of a ripoff of John Ruskin's term emotional clearing. And he has a book by that name. And he teaches how he comes from a yoga meditation community, and so he noticed that when you're doing deep meditation, when you're sitting there for an hour or more, and you just, that becomes part of your lifestyle, a lot of junk starts to float up in your meditations. And so he basically just started accepting this junk as it floats up in the meditations, and then started explaining how he does that, and developed a whole practice, a whole methodology for processing shadow emotions in the container of meditation. Well, Melissa and I, we just did it through the container of the relationship. We just allowed conflicts to do that. And then we learned that when you're triggered, whether in relationship or just by the environment, by something you see, something you perceive, when you're triggered, then that's the perfect time to actually do the emotional clearing. And you don't have to be a dedicated meditator to do that. Because if you had to do it in meditation, that would cut off most of the population, because most of the population in the West is not meditating. So you can do it anytime you're triggered. Oh, hi, Stephanie. You can't run when you commit to stillness. Emotions can't be ignored in that state. No, I think that's probably the reason. Yeah. So when you're committed to sitting still and to being with whatever comes through, like the clouds that come through your psyche, as they describe it, then you're forced to be with it. And whereas when you're not meditating, you can distract. You can get on your phone, you can turn on a movie, you can smoke a joint, you can drink a beer or some wine or whatever, or go for a run or whatever you want to do, and you can distract away from the inflow of those feelings. And so that's a very good point, and that's why it was such a problem for meditators. And so he came out with that. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people that have talked about, doing that. But the way John described it, I haven't seen anybody else describe that. And we learned about it from a woman, I can't remember her name. She wrote a small book. She went to she either read his book or she trained with him, and then she wrote her version of it. And there's another guy named Michael Brown, and he had a book called The Presence Process. And we were into that early on. This is all going to be like 2013, 14, 15. And so some very similar thing. And so it's just so simple. It's just you allow the emotions to come. You get triggered, and then you go sit down. You go kick back somewhere, sit down where you can cry. And you just go sit back, and then you allow the emotions to come up and take over your body. So if it's anger, it's going to be very kind of active, and it's going to make you want to punch the wall or whatever, but you don't do that. And then you just allow that to sit with you, and then it will usually turn over to something else, something more feminine, like grief or fear. And when you get to grief, you have to cry through that. And so you just use triggers as a way to get into these emotions, and you just sit there with them and allow the energy to physiologically move through your body. And so you just make that part of your lifestyle, and you clean yourself out that way. So it's like a continual, it's like taking out the garbage. It's like all your life you weren't doing that, and so it all piled up, and your parents weren't doing it, so it all piled up. Your parents maybe, especially if you're a boy, didn't want you to cry, or you became an adult and you thought it wasn't okay to cry, so it's been piling up, and now you're given permission to do that, and so you do that, and you make it part of your life. Leslie, hi Leslie. One can access the parts through intention, imagination, and attunement to the body. One needn't wait to be triggered. Yes, you're totally right. You can do that, and that's what's happening in the meditation process that John Ruskan is doing. But again, not everyone has that kind of natural state of access like you have, especially men, but a lot of women too. They're just dissociated from their bodies and their feelings. And so just sitting there and tuning in, just nothing happens. You're just like, okay, I'm getting bored. Nothing's happening here. So the trigger is the time to do it for those people. Yes, if you do have emotional access, if you find yourself, if you are one of those personality types that is, like INFP personality types, for example, and you have that access to your feelings and to your bodily state and everything, then yes, you'll be able to do that. And you just need to know that this is a practice and that you can do this and that you should do this. It's really that simple, because a lot of people could be doing this right away, but they don't even know that they can or should do this. And it's so simple and so basic, but it's just not in our culture. So, and then there's the people who have to, I was one of those people. You have to work on it. You have to sit with yourself when you're triggered. And sometimes you're not just triggered in the way we usually think of being triggered, like in a fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend, or triggered by a politician or something like that. Sometimes you'll find that you just wake up in the morning and you're mad, right? You just wake up triggered. You just wake up with this stuff in you. Or something will happen at work or whatever, and you won't even really understand what it is, but it's just there. So sometimes it's more, it's not so pointed. Sarah says, I feel like dealing with the idea of death, once I understood it, it made it easier to it says deranged all my triggers. It's still a process, but now the fear is gone. Oh, that's good. Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying. There are particular questions and prompts that can assist. Yes, you're right. There are. This would be, I'm sure there's already a book like this out there. This would be a good book. You could do that, or just a good white paper is to put down triggers or prompts, that you can talk to yourself, talk to your parts, and get reactions out of them to go into this material just in a practice. And so, yeah, spell check or whatever was it's okay. But yeah, yeah, the death thing. Now, Sarah, you, and also Stephanie, and also Melissa, who have had physical conditions that have put you very close to death. You guys have that particular type of shadow material, much closer to consciousness. And so you guys have to work on that. And then other stuff on top of that. That's kind of that's the big one that you have to work with for a while, because you're in it. You're almost there. You're almost falling off the edge. And so you have to go through that. So that's a big lesson or a big practice for people like that. We all get, the fear of death shows up in everybody's life all the time. And so we can all use that as a doorway in. Call it a trigger. It's a doorway in. Now, with me, with the whole death thing, is I, like most people, just sort of dissociated from it and kind of just put it out of my mind, and it never was anything that was really plaguing me. But then when Melissa died, and it happened right in front of me, and I had to just be there every day, every moment of the day while she's dying, and then be with her in the hospital, in the hospice, while she actually passes away right in front of me. And then I have to carry on my life without her, and my mission and everything is now shifted. So I had to go through the sort of the withdrawals of the merging with Melissa, because our psyches were so merged, and then it felt like half my soul was cut off. And then I have to reconstitute myself without her being here. And when I was in that process, I feel like I'm just now reconstituting myself. But when I was in this liminal state over this past year, I could easily see just walking off the stage. Why even be here? What's the deal? I mean, it's like I've done so many things in life already. I've traveled a lot. I've had all kinds of experiences of every kind. and I've seen the world in a lot of ways and everything, and it's like, yeah, okay, this is a cool simulation. It's exciting, it's interesting, but after a while, it's like, been there, done that. It's like, what's the deal? To me, the best thing that when I was younger, when I was a musician, being at band practice, writing songs, recording albums, going on tour, playing music, that was the most exciting and most awesome thing I could possibly do. It was so amazing. But then that was it's kind of the first half of my adulthood. Now, or not half, but first segment of it. Now, then I got with Melissa, and we had 12 years of alchemy together and just incredibly prolific time together. I mean, we were so massively creative, and we're just downloading massively. And we became one entity, and it was so exciting, and life was so fulfilling with Melissa that I think to myself, well, what could be better than that? And so that to me is like, that's my standard now. It's not playing on stages and, playing for heavy metal kids or whatever anymore. That's cool, I like that. But that's not the ultimate for me anymore. The ultimate is alchemical relationships, and even alchemical relationships with people who are friends, who are not, I'm not sexually intimate with, like Stephanie. We can have a very highly conscious relationship, and it's very satisfying. It's once people get into especially people who are intimate, once you can kind of train yourself to be doing this work in the container of the relationship, you'll see there's nothing better than this. It's great. It's incredible. And so, affirm life daily. Hi. So yes, I went through that after your husband I see you had 27 years with your husband. I only had 12 with Melissa. You said that you thought that you had died too because you felt so disconnected without his physical presence. Yes, man. And it's like when you're going through it, you have to zoom out from that. I mean, you can zoom out from that and you can recognize, okay, people are dying all over the world. Families are sending their sons and daughters to war and they're not coming back, or they're getting killed in accidents and all kinds of ways. People are just dying out of the blue, and they never get a chance to say goodbye or anything, and it's just terrible trauma to the family. But this is happening all over the world all the time, and always has. And so then when we go through it, it's the ultimate initiation and destructive experience for ourselves, but it's also something that's very, very human, and it's part of the evolutionary process of the psyche of humanity. It's like humanity needs that. Nature is doing that all around us. Look at how all these creatures, all these animals and everything, bacteria, all the living creatures and organisms that are around us, they're all just living and dying and slaughtering each other and all of this, and eating each other and everything else. It's just, death is just everywhere. And then we're in this modern world where we're kind of protected from it. And then we get it. It hits us again, and we're like, oh man, what in the world just happened? And you don't know if you can take it. But our good friend C. Michael Smith, crowsnestshamanism.com, he's been very, very helpful to us, and he did IFS therapy with Melissa for a whole year, her last year of life. And it was, it's right after Melissa died, he said, when you're on the heart path, when you're on the heart evolution path, you have to have your heart cracked open, and then you have to heal it, and then you have to have it cracked open, and then you heal it. And this is actually how you develop. This is how you mature. This is how you evolve on that path. You have to have your heart broken, and then you have to heal it. over, multiple times. Maybe you have one big one in life. Maybe you have multiple big ones in life. Different people are different. But you have to have that experience. It's part of your evolution. And so I'm now only a year out from that whole thing, and I feel like I thought I was kind of not healed, but kind of over the bridge a couple of times already. But it's kind of been like multiple cycles of that, and I feel now it'll be a year in 2 weeks or something, 10 days, and I feel like I now kind of can feel myself again. So it's my dad told me that after he lost his mother, he said it was about a year before he kind of felt like he came back together again. And so I'm sure I'll keep on feeling this, but yeah. So you had Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia. Nice to meet you. You had to completely reconfigure the way that you viewed and processed the life cycle, so you could accept it better. That is it. That's why you're on this program, because that's what we do. That's what our kind of people do. That's what alchemists do. We have to make meaning, we have to make sense out of these ineffable, mysterious occurrences in life. And we have to basically mythologize them. And we have to kind of turn them into our own personal myth. And I can tell you about kind of how I'm doing that with Melissa. Melissa is like a saint to me. She's Saint Mari now. And so I have like a whole altar to her, and I'm write music, for her. I've been using this AI program called Suno, which is, as a musician, as an artist, you would think that I would be against that, but I'm using it, and I'm taking Melissa's words, from her diary, from her lyrics, from her other songs. She was a musician, taking it from her songs, taking melodies from her songs, putting it into the computer, having it reconfigure things and make new songs out of her material. Plus, I'm remixing her old material. I made the whole movie about her, and I'll keep making short films and other stuff about her. So I'm kind of, she's kind of I just worship her now. And so I kind of have my own private religion. It's like goddess worship with Melissa Mari, as the sort of the image, as the idol, as the focal point. And I'm just kind of going on with it and just letting it kind of manifest as it does. And so, that's one thing that I'm doing. And I should mention this to you guys again, because I said this at the beginning, is if you want to see the trailer about Melissa, it's about the film about Melissa. It's Melissa Mari Music. No, it's not. It's melissamarimovie.com. Her full website is melissamarimusic.com, but it's melissamarimovie.com. And if you want to see the movie before it's out, just send me an email or a message, and I'll just send you the link to it. You can watch the movie. And so anybody who's really, especially women, I think, who are really self-healers, artists, alchemists, self-healers, wounded healers, you can watch this movie about Melissa, and I try to give you an overview I try to, put you in touch with who she was at the deepest level. Even though you can't get it's a 100-minute long movie. There's only so much I can put in there, but I have so much material of Melissa, so much material that I'll just be able to make a lot more material as time goes on. But so, yeah, let me do a little test here and see if I still have that looping going on. Hold on. Yeah, it's still going there. It's funny. That's very interesting. I have to figure out why that is. What is making? Yeah, when I turn up my volume in my headphones, I hear myself delayed coming back through. And that shouldn't be happening. Oh, you know what I'm going to check? Let me check one thing before I move on, because I have some other stuff to share with you guys and to show you. But let me see if this is being caused by, no, it's not understandable. It's not understandable from my current settings, but it's okay because I don't have another guest on right now, and so I don't have to use that function. Right. So now, yes, Cynthia. Yeah. So if you want to watch a movie, Cynthia, just send me an email and I'll send you the link. I'm shopping it to film festivals right now, and they don't want it to be just out there public while you're doing that. But I'm going to release it, just for free on the internet once, probably by the end of the year, once I see if it's getting into any festivals or not. So I have no problem just sending it in a private link to people. But so now let me, let me tell you, so let me go to the missionary side of this. And so the missionary side of this is that, well, first of all, I recognize that in Western society that's very materialistic and exoteric and outward-facing, we are a psychologically illiterate civilization, and we are just addicted to projecting. And so it's only going to be a minority of people who are really going to take inner work, individuation, as Jung called it, seriously. But I do think that it makes sense that now that we have, when we had World War II in Europe and all those people were suffering, that would be the perfect time to really get into all of this. And that actually did spur the rise of some kind of popularity of Jungian psychology, but not to the degree that we really needed it, but at least it did push it up there. And so it kind of feels like, and then everything corrected, or everything kind of got patched over, and it looks like now we're probably headed for another crash of some kind. At least, it looks like it. It looks like it. It's just these are cycles, and so maybe it will be after we have another depression of some kind before people will say, okay, more people will be in pain and more people will be using these tools. And so we might get another resurgence of this. But and in fact, it looks to me like even just the very fact that the society is visibly declining, because we can see it now more easily. We're all on the internet and we're all showing each other the decline of the civilization. And so that's triggering fear, that's triggering grief, that's triggering our shadow material. And people are, young people don't know what their life is going to be like going forward. And, the American dream and all of that, or whatever you want to call it, is, it looks like it's not really that possible. And it's all kind of moving in the direction of where people will be picking up this kind of work and taking it seriously again. And so I just can see that we're at the beginning of it. We can see more people talking about shadow work, more people talking about Carl Jung. You have IFS, and you have more types of therapy now. The mainstream society doesn't know about it. They're not using it. And but there is an underground current of people who are waking up to the fact that they really have to work on themselves. And so what my activist side is like, okay, because me and Melissa were ahead of the curve here, and 10 years ago it wasn't even as culturally hospitable as it is now. But so my activist side says, well, first, share this material with other people. Give people methods, give them techniques, give them a general understanding of what we're doing in this kind of work. It's like, and how it's difficult medicine a lot of the times to take, but how that it really does make you feel better. It really does heal you. Your relationships can be transformed through conscious relational alchemy, and your whole life can take on a much greater sense of purpose and meaning, and you can actually, when you really get deep into this, you can really interface with the sort of, we called it living in the movie-like nature of reality. And you can start using synchronicities and outer occurrences as guidance, and you can really kind of have more of a lucid, self-aware way of being in the world. And so even if the world kind of doesn't make sense in a lot of ways, you're in your own private mystery school. And that's very fulfilling. And so you're working on yourself, you're working with your partner on your relationship, on your conflicts, you're pulling up your junk, you're doing the emotional processing, you're doing the shadow work in general through whatever technique. Your consciousness is raising, you're getting a more and more objective view of yourself, you're seeing yourself developing what they call the witness or the watcher, you're getting higher and higher, more and more objective. You're able to get in front of your trigger ability more and more easily. And then if you're doing it with other people, then you have a community of people who are doing this and who are waking up to this. And so this is a very meaningful, very useful, very self-healing and self-fulfilling way of living in the world. And it isn't for every personality type. There are extroverts and people with certain personality types. They're going to be able to do this work from time to time when they crash in life. So when they crash, then it's up to us, their friends, family, community members who have this kind of experience and wisdom because we've been spending so much time on it, to be able to help them when they've fallen down. That's when, people, very highly success-oriented, extroverted people, when they go to therapy is when after they've crashed. They just couldn't understand what was going on. And they crash, they're having a dark night of the soul, and they need help out. They need to learn some tools. But they're not going to make it their whole lifestyle. They're not going to become alchemists, so to speak. But still, we need to develop that kind of experience and wisdom for ourselves, and then to help them. Sarah says, what do you think about how disappointed can halt? Sarah, can you retype that again without the typo? I don't understand what you mean. How do you think about how disappointed can halt? I don't, that's not the right word. A spell check or something is doing something there. But so I'm kind of an activist about it. Melissa and I were both like that. You take the work is personal first, and then once if you are fully committed to this, then you can become an activist about it and start sharing it with other people and teaching other people and waking other people up. So anyway, I was going to show you something. Disappointment. How disappointment can halt the healing process. Well, my general attitude on anything that's considered negative, right? Or you could call shadow material. Disappointment. Disappointment isn't shadow material if it's conscious. Disappointment is, it's some kind of an ego wound. Yeah. Oh, it's fine. But disappointment is something that again, all of these things, you use them as the doorway into the roots of those things. Sometimes disappointment is something that is the sort of the slapback from projection, right? From inflation or projection. And when you're in a creative phase and you're building up something, you're doing something creative, and things start working out for you, and you start seeing, oh wow, this is flowing, and everything is kind of working, and you're getting positive feedback and all of that, you're kind of getting high on your own supply a little bit. And that doesn't mean that you're grandiose or narcissistic, but it just means that you're tapped in. And I could explain the kind of Edward Edinger's ego self-axis cycle, but I won't right now. But and so you get a little bit inflated. You're getting a little bit high. You're getting high, and maybe things are working out. And then there's some slapback. It doesn't work out. Something didn't fit, or something slaps you back, or a complex, an unconscious complex, gets involved and pulls the rug out from under you. And so then you're sitting in the mud, you're in the dirt, and you're whether it's disappointment or whether it's disappointment, or any kind of feelings that emerge once you've crashed. And then you have to go into that, basically. You have to use that as a doorway. You have to go process those emotions like we were talking about. You have to let yourself feel the disappointment, and you have to kind of watch your psyche go through all of the stories that are playing in your head, and I should have done this. And some people are going to be more self-deprecating. They're going to be like, I was a dummy. I was bad. I was an idiot. I should have seen this coming. Other people are going to be more projective about it, and they're going to be like, he did that, or if he hadn't have done that, or she, or whoever out there. And those are going to be the stories. And a lot of times it starts with he or she was so bad, and then they come around to, oh God, it was actually me. I'm the dumb one. I'm the immature one. I'm the evil one, whatever. The guilty one. And so that is just now an opportunity to do the shadow work, to do the emotional processing. And it's an opportunity, if you use IFS, to talk to those parts. I really recommend internal family systems because it gets you in touch with the different parts of your psyche that have their little micro personalities that are in there. They're your little child parts. They're your little boy and girl parts that are in there. And you can talk to them, and you can say, well, why are you disappointed, and what's your name, and what's your nature, and how do you feel, and where do you come from? And you can start having a relationship with those parts, and you can trace back those feelings to your childhood. Well, when did you feel those feelings of disappointment when you were younger? Can you see how the current cycle of disappointment is really just a redo of a continuing cycle that's been going your whole life? And then can you go trace it into your parents' life, one or both of your parents, and see how they might have had that kind of a cycle? And so it's not just you don't just have to deal with it like, okay, I just got hit with this thing out of the blue. You're like, oh, here it comes again. That's really how it is. Here it comes again. It's coming around. And so the more something cycles through, the more you get familiar with it, and the more you get to know that. It's like Halley's Comet or something, comes around every 86 years or whatever. It just cycles through. Or the seasons, they just cycle through. The winter just cycles through, and there's going to be another death season. And so you just learn to work with it. You learn to allow it to be and allow it to move through you. And then you use the opportunity to try to trace it down to its roots, to the parts that are associated with it. And you talk with those parts, and you start allowing those parts to kind of teach you about them. And you can do all kinds of other kinds of therapy with it. You can talk to other people about it. You can write about it. You can make art about it. You can make mythology about it. You can make your own philosophy about it. You can try to process it in your cognitive brain in whatever way that you want to do that. And talking about it, you can talk into recorders or talk into your phone and make like audio journals, definitely journaling. You got to follow your dreams. You got to watch your dreams in those, when you're having those downswings. Watch your dreams, because they're going to be showing you where you're at. And so these extreme disappointment could halt the healing process if it results in blocking movement forward or into the depths of self-understanding. Right. But what I'm suggesting here is that you not allow that to happen. Yes, that could happen, and that does happen with most people. But what I'm saying is that we don't allow that to happen, because anytime shadow material, anytime destructive occurrences show up in our movie of life, we use those as a doorway down into the roots of those things, and allow that energy to come up into consciousness and to manifest into something productive, some transcendent function, the alchemical child that comes out of that fire, that alchemical creative process. It's actually using what artists call the creative process is very helps understand this. So the artist has to, for an artist to be successful, a lot of people don't become artists because they can't tolerate this cycle. But so the artist gets an idea, and then they start working on that idea, and then they reach a wall with it, and then they're getting high on their own idea, and then all of a sudden the well runs dry, and they lose it, and so then they have to sit there in that disappointment or in that sense of lack. They have to sit there, and then they have to kind of just push through it, and they just have to either wait a little while, or usually it's wait and try again, and wait and try again, rest and try again, and rest and try this way, try that way, and then finally there's a breakthrough, and then they hit another vein, right, of gold, and then they follow that vein for a while, and then they run dry again, and then they gotta wait, try this, try that, move left, move right, and they have to keep crunching and pushing through it, going to sleep every few nights going, oh crap, I thought I had it, but now I don't, and you can barely sleep, and then you are just hanging with it for days or weeks, and then oh, there's something. And so you're just living on these little doses of creation that are just coming to you as you just continue to plow through. And then if you do that and you can tolerate that kind of, situation, then you can create something great. And on the other side of it, when you're done, you're like, it's magnificent. I love it. It's just wonderful. And you did it. And then you get high on that. And then that's what you get faith in the process. And then you're like, well, it worked. Last time it took me a year to create that book, or 5 years to create that thing, or that album, or that whatever it was you're making, painting, whatever. And I tolerated it, and I did it, and I was very satisfied on the other side. And so I can do it again. And then you do it a second time, and it's like, oh, I could do it again. And then you just get used to this. And this is the trials and tribulations and sacrifices of being an artist. And a lot of people can't handle that. But I don't know. I can, and all successful artists can. Let's see here. The cycle happens with me in regards to food. Sarah, yes. Well, everything right. The law of rhythm, exactly. The Kabbalion, right? So, everything is rhythm. Everything is cycles. And obviously, look at nature. That's what's going on. Everything is life and death, and pulling it apart and putting it back together, and pulling it apart and putting it back together. And so, this is our life, and this is the duality meta program, we called it. Sort of the base code of this simulation that we seem to be in. And so it's as a duality lesson: masculine, feminine, creation, destruction, dark, light, in, out, up, down, everything that has to do with duality. Yes, you can escape that through some kind of a non-dual experience, but when you come back to the world that you're supposed to be, your training simulation, you're back in duality again. So it's obviously something that we're supposed to learn from, and learn how to ride the roller coaster. And that's what it's partially what this is all about. So now, I was still on my activist rant. And so So part of the, there's been, I've been kind of, I'm kind of a synthesizer, and I've been synthesizing different philosophical ideas. It's like, what's what we did with Shadow Tech? We synthesized a whole bunch of different ideas from different holons, you could say, using a term from integral theory. And I'm into integral theory. And we kind of synthesized sort of a holistic look at the shadow. And so one of the things I've been doing more lately, I've been working on this for a while, is to try to put our understanding of the shadow into Ken Wilber's 4 quadrants model. And some people think, oh, well, it sounds academic and blah, blah, blah. But it's incredibly useful and quite elegant. Ken Wilber said, well, hey, everybody that studies something, or everybody that looks at something, they look at it from one of 4 perspectives. And this is just how human consciousness is. You look at things from the first person subjective perception, like how does something, like if you're talking about art, a piece of art, a Picasso or something, you got your inner sense of how that art makes you feel, and the thoughts that are going through your head, the feelings that are happening in your body. That's the I, inner state quadrant of the 4 quadrants. And then you have the we quadrant, the second person quadrant. And that's the quadrant of how we will have shared feelings, shared ideas about that art. And that's where you'll read articles about Picasso, and people will be talking about these qualities that he has, and there'll be like a general agreement of Picasso was this kind of an artist and he made us feel this way and this, and we will kind of all share like general agreements about the quality and the meaning of his art. So that's like the shared cultural perspective that we can have on something like Picasso's art, for example. I'm just using that as an example. Or we can go to the third person perspective, the it perspective, and you can look at his art like an it, and like a scientist would look at something. You could actually take his art and you can go, oh wow, look how he uses the acrylics or whatever. Is he an acrylic painter? I think so. And then, and oh, look how he uses the brush strokes, and look at the paper or the canvas that he uses. And you can technically investigate his painting from a scientific perspective. And then you have the sort of the collective materialist perspective, the it's, the third person plural perspective. And that pertains to everything that has to do with, the museums and all the institutions and everything that has to do with supporting art and his art and all of that. So you get these 4 perspectives, and academics are always on 1 or 2 of these, and they're always arguing with each other like, oh, this is what it is and this is what, but they're all looking at it through different perspectives. Well, I took the subject of the shadow and I put that in there. And I said, oh, okay. So, and I'll show you this. I show this all the time because I'm trying to initiate people into this. And then you can go look at integral theory, Ken Wilber's work, if you like. It's very fascinating and very helpful to me. But so, let me put this on here better for you. So this was in the book, the Transforming Darkness book. So I just took the shadow and I said, okay, well, you get your personal shadow. That's the upper left-hand quadrant. That's the I perspective. You got the cultural shadow, all the different nasty ideologies, the fascism and Nazism and Marxism or whatever other, depends on your point of view, of course. Some people say wokeism is a cultural shadow. Some people say, no, that's not. But you have your cultural shadow. And then your upper right-hand quadrant, you have where does the shadow manifest in the actual body? That's disease, that's personal disease, dysfunction, neurosis, and everything that's going on in your actual body. That's your health. And then where does the shadow manifest in the collective, in the actual institutions, in the society, in the government, and all that? That's what I call the collective deep state. People refer to it as the deep state now, the shadow government, and that's all the corruption and everything that's in the system, in the matrix. So there's a little red pill in the bottom there, because the red pill people are always talking about the cultural shadow or the deep state. But they're not recognizing that, well, that is just two perspectives of the same phenomenon. And the personal shadow, which is I'm mostly talking about, shadow work and Jungian individuation and all of that, that's the upper left-hand quadrant. And of course, the upper right-hand quadrant, the health part, that's where you get the health freedom movement and people who are becoming much more aware of all the poisons that are in the food and how important it is to take care of yourself physically. That's coming online more now. So this just kind of helps you to see that when you want to take responsibility for the shadow, so to speak, when you want to mitigate evil and disease in the world, you have to address all four quadrants equally. And sometimes you have to be more in one and more in the other. Now then, I'll tell you something, show you another one of these four quadrants. I took Melissa's idea of homobilancia, put that in there. So this was her term. It was, balance mankind. It's the same thing as the Jungians when they talk about wholeness, or the Taoists, and everybody has their understanding of trying to achieve balance. And I was having a conversation with Stephanie about this the other night, and she was making it clear that never happens. You never get balance. It's always just this constant push and pull, and that's absolutely true. You don't ever get it. But you can use it as a target. And so if we use the same system there, and if we take this sort of ethical idea of Erich Neumann's, of how that we have to basically become shadow-aware people now, we have to work on ourselves in every way possible on behalf of humanity. We have to push the cutting edge of human evolution for the species itself and for healing ourselves. Then, okay, here we go. So what you're working with is in the upper left-hand quadrant, you're working on your inner state and your relational field. That's your psyche. Because the psyche isn't just you. It's the whole, you could say it's the collective unconscious that Jung would talk about, but just in your own relationship, there's a field between you and your husband, you and your wife, you and your partner, and you are merged in that field. And so your psyche is, to a degree, both of your psyche. So you're attending to that, you're working with that, you're analyzing that, you're trying to understand what's going on there. All this stuff we've been talking about failed expectations and disappointments and all of that. This is you working with this stuff. And when you work with it with your partner, and your partner becomes your alchemical partner, your alchemical lab partner, okay, well, you can get a whole lot done there. So that's your inner evolution, your individuation. That's the I quadrant. And then your we quadrant is your beliefs, your values, your ethics. Trying to become aware of what are your beliefs? What are your values? What are your ethics? So I actually wrote all mine down. I have this, it's on solutiopodcast.com. I wrote my own psychosocial manifesto of ethics to figure out kind of what are my ethics? What are my beliefs and cultural ethics? And so everybody can do that. That's like one of my shadow work practices that I suggest to people. So there you're just inspecting, and you're just constantly being aware of the beliefs, the stories that are running in your psyche, the values that you have, the ethics that you're living by or that you believe in, your morality. That's the we quadrant, but that's how you do that work on yourself. Then the physical body we talked about, that's a clean and healthy body. And then the lower right-hand quadrant, the third person plural, is your world. I called it right here just worldly footprint, and I put symbiotic lifestyle. And so that's actually quite difficult in the modern world, where you really analyze your whole way of living, where you're living, who you're working for, what you're buying, what you're putting back into the environment, your your whole footprint, your whole physical footprint in the world. Are you being symbiotic? John Mackey wrote this book, the guy from Whole Foods, called Conscious Capitalism. And I know the word stakeholders has gotten a bad rap lately because of all the, like globalist type stuff. But he was talking about this early on, where basically, like if you're Whole Foods and you have all these stakeholders, you have all these different hold-ons, or all these different players that are involved in your business, right? You have the actual farmers, and then you have the distributors, and you have the truckers, and you have everybody that gets the food there, and the warehouse people, and all that stuff. And then you've got the grocers at the store, and all of that. And then you've got the customers, and you got this whole chain, the supply chain. And what you want to do to be a conscious company is you want to take a look at every one of those links in the chain, and you want to inspect those and make sure that at every level there's as much symbiosis going on as you can make. There's as much satisfaction and needs being met from all parties all the way up and down the chain. And then when you get to the environment, you have to take responsibility for the environment, because the environment can't explicitly tell you what it wants. And so then you have to sort of come in as the advocate for the environment, and that's part of your duty. And so that would become what he called conscious capitalism. And so, but you can do that in your own life, right? So you're taking a look, you're running your own business and stuff, and everybody that's part of the whole chain of relationships in the business, from manufacturing of products and just blah, 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 all the way down, you're looking at that, and you're trying to clean it up and be as symbiotic and clean and healthy and balanced with every one of those aspects. And so you're doing the same thing when you're doing shadow work, when you're doing individuation. That's what you're doing on yourself. That's what you're doing it's the same process when you're doing IFS work and you're talking to your parts and working with your parts and everything. It's the same thing. And so that's what you're doing when you're working out your own ethics. You're just kind of going in there. That's what you're doing when you're working on your health. Okay, you're looking at your whole diet and all the different parts of your diet and your exercise and all of that. And you're kind of just isolating aspects of it, and you're cleaning it up, cleaning it up, cleaning it up, cleaning it up. This is an ethical system of symbiosis, balance, and cleanliness. That's what this is. And so when you talk about Jungian psychology or any other kind of system of working on yourself, all this does is it just takes it and moves it to a holistic, 4-quadrant, a holistic viewpoint, and spreads it out. It's not just you and your psyche, it's across all 4 quadrants. 9:33, so I was going to go till 10, so we got some more time, and if folks are still hanging. But yeah, so anyway, these shows that because I just started the podcast and stuff, this is the kind of stuff that I'm just kind of laying out and kind of throwing on you guys. And I'm kind of, like I was telling Stephanie, I'm kind of becoming kind of a missionary of this now that Melissa's not here, and we worked out all this stuff. I mean, we just created our own alchemy lab, and then all this material came out of it, and then we tested it on ourselves, and we showed it to other people and got feedback and everything, and kept developing it. But it was coming through us. This is the creative process. It's coming through us, and anything that kind of didn't check out, we were like, okay, that doesn't work, And there's a whole lot of like tenets that go into this. And so now here I am on the other side. And it's like I've got this whole body of work now, and we've been using it on ourselves, but now it needs to get out more. So it was in the books, but that wasn't really, people weren't really picking it up. So now I kind of have to be more forceful with it. Now I have to be like, look, and all this really is, I'm calling this kind of a strand of the new human potential movement, like I was talking about earlier. as people feel the need to do this kind of deep work on themselves, because the civilization can't really, it's cracking up. And so that sends a message to everybody, oh, we better do something. And when you keep trying the same old stuff and it doesn't work, then you got to try something new. And this is getting into the roots. This is the real root work. And so, so now I feel like, okay, so now there's a burgeoning movement for this kind of a thing. And I can see that there's a lot of different strains or strands of it. And this is one. This is like me and Melissa's personal life art, we called it. And it's not to be taken as any kind of a cult or some kind of a be all end all thing. It's just two people's creation in this area. And it can be looked at, it can be studied, it can be questioned, it can be implemented to whatever degree you want to. And then you can pick up other people's stuff or develop your own stuff, because ultimately that's the best thing to do. But we're all sharing with each other. I mean, if I didn't have all these other great thinkers and doers to be influenced by, all we're all really doing is we're just taking culture and we're just kind of crunching it and then kind of making an update on it. That's all we're ever doing. We're kind of just updating what already is. But anyway, so that's that. And I could go in a whole lot more directions, but if anybody has any other suggestions for where we should go, be happy to do that. And you know what I'm going to do soon is I'm going to figure out how you guys can call in. Yes, I can give you the Zoom link because I'm actually using Zoom to stream. And I can use Zoom to have guests and all of that. But it could get to, if you have, like, we just have a few people on right now, but if you have more people, it will get too jumbled and chaotic to be managing a whole Zoom room and stuff and doing a podcast at the same time. But so I was thinking I would just have it more like a radio show where you can just call the number. And so then you could just call me on the phone, right? It could be like Cynthia, who's there, or Stephanie, or Leslie, or Sarah, or whoever. Could just call me on the phone, and I just put it on speakerphone, put it right here, and be like, you'd hear it. Everybody would hear it perfectly. I just go like this, just put it right here up to the mic, and it's so easy. And it's like low tech, but it would work really well. And this is a really good mic, and it would just pick it up really good. And then we could just have a conversation, and it could be like, okay, yeah, we can talk about that, and everybody could listen. I could say, all right, see you later, and hang up, and then the next person could call. So it'd be like a call-in show. So that but I have to figure out how to get the number going and stuff like that, because I don't think I want to just give out my my regular number. Oh yeah, absolutely. Share anything on Revolution Radio you want to. Sarah, absolutely, please do. That'd be great. Because Melissa and I started podcasting a couple of times and we fell off. But I'm not going to do that anymore. Because we had so much other stuff to do in life. It was just like, we don't need to mess with that so much. We were making albums and putting bands together and writing books and stuff like that. So podcasting wasn't that important to us. But now I think it's necessary. And I'm very open to how to do this in a way that builds community and so that we can help each other, and that we can share ideas this way, but then we can actually use these calls, these broadcasts, as some kind of partial therapy, not complete, but using them in that way. I think they will be that in that way to some degree. And then of course I'll have guests on sometimes. Sometimes I'll just do pre-recorded, recordings like I always did with people, and then just put them on the YouTube channel. But sometimes I'll have folks call in. Like once I get the phone call thing working, I can have a guest on, And then you guys can call in and talk to both of us. So yes, I want it to be very interactive, and I don't want it to be completely shoved into the type of therapy that I do, or Carl Jung's thing or anything like that. I want it to be more open so that you can bring in whatever is working for you. But the main sort of criteria for me is that I want to hear from you all about what you've been doing to evolve yourself, what you've been doing to evolve your relationships, how you've been doing shadow work, what your process is, what your practice is. And I'm happy to also tell you what I've done and what me and Melissa did, and then or explain anything that's in the books or anything like that. But then I also want other people to be able to explain what they're doing, have guests on, and have you talk to them, and just really, but it's all about taking inner work, individuation seriously as a lifestyle, as a way of being, as an ethical way of being, and not just passing around Carl Jung quotes on social media or whatever, because that's good. I'm glad that that's happening, and that's kind of like baby steps. But I want this broadcast to be a place for people who are doing serious work on themselves to share ideas and to be inspired and to feel that they're part of something. And like I was telling, I think, Andrew Raponic the other day, I feel like, if you guys know about the Esalen Institute, Michael Murphy and the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was a place where all kinds of psychospiritual thinkers would gather and do workshops and share ideas. And that was the prior wave of what I think is the next wave. Hasn't really come, but it's on the way. And that was the prior wave. And that wave didn't really work with the shadow very much. This next wave will. It's absolutely will. I see that. It's definitely. So because you see all the red pilling going on in the outer culture. So the as above, so below. That's the above side. So the below side is the shadow work at the personal level. So yeah. So So anyway, there we go. And 9:42. Maybe I will read to you a little bit of stuff, or maybe I will, I have my show notes. I'm figuring out how to do this, and I wrote a bunch of show notes, and I think I've gone over a lot of that material now, but I think I might show you a few things here. I already showed you the Neumann book, Depth Psychology and a New Ethic. That's the activist side of this work. Okay, that's the activist side. Let me move this Solutio out of the way here. This is a book that is the book that I recommend to everybody who's just getting started on shadow work and Jungian psychology. Owning Your Own Shadow by Robert Johnson. This is the book to start with, and I would say Robert Johnson is the author to start with. I haven't found anybody that I think is better than him as to get into Jungian psychology, because his books are short. They're small, and they're all no longer than this. And it's got big words in it, big letters and stuff. And he goes through every different feature of Jungian psychology. So if there's like 15 different kind of features of Jungian psychology, he's got a book on all of those. And so this is a wonderful way to get initiated and to get educated on Jungian psychology. It's quite easy through him. Well, it's not an easy thing, but okay. Then there's this one here, Practical Jung. This is still in print. Harry Wilmer, The Nuts and Bolts of Jungian Psychotherapy. This is written for students, college students and people who are going into the field of psychotherapy. And he's got all these great, and it's very arty. It's very 60s, 70s-ish. I'll show you some. It's got a lot of, look. So check this out. Shadow, let's see if I can get that in focus. Let's see if that will, oh, you know what? It's totally overexposed because, look, you can kind of see right there. He's got drawings. He's an artist. And so he drew you like the whole cycle of shadow projection right there. Or the wounded healer, how the wounded healer works between the therapist and the patient. They both have a wounded healer side to them that's interacting, or the transference and all these different ideas. So it's kind of written in very easy to read language, and it's still very deep, and it kind of gives you everything you need to know about Jungian psychology. So that's a really good book, Practical Jung, The Nuts and Bolts of Jungian Psychotherapy. This book I've been reading, I've been into Edward Edinger for years, and this is called The Christian Archetype, a Jungian Commentary on the Life of Christ. And this is a subject that I'm not actually prepared to lecture on right now, but at some point I will. And he basically goes through all of the different sort of aspects of the Christian myth and gives you a Jungian psychological interpretation of them all. And which is, man, I think it's necessary. I think it's really necessary. I think it's just like, if you can't believe literally in the Christian myth anymore, but you also recognize that it is still packed with truth. It's still packed with, medicinal ideas, motifs, images, symbols. And you realize how, it's been the operating system of Western society for 2,000 years, and it's important, but you can't quite gel with it in a literal way anymore, or never could. Then the Jungian psychological interpretation is the way to go. It takes you to the next level with it. So you can still keep it. It's right here. You still understand it and keep it, but then now you have this new layer of interpretation that brings you into the modern mindset, even deeper than the average modern mindset. But so it's like an interface between the ancient understanding and the current potential understanding. So it's very important. I got some Ken Wilber books and stuff like that too. I'm really into Wilber and integral theory. But anyway, so I think let's see let's see here. I haven't scrolled down. I think I might be missing you guys. Your it would be good for kids. Oh, is a book too adult? Owning Your Own Shadow? Yeah, Owning Your Own Shadow is too adult for kids. But you could certainly read it and then explain it to kids. Eckhart Tolle used to say that, still does, that parents should read about the pain body in his books. Both of his books have chapters on the pain body, and then work on it in your own relationship, and then bring the kids into it. Let the kids know, oh, okay, mommy and daddy have a pain body. Oh, okay, it's active again. There we go. Or there's a pain body in the kids. The kids have inherited a pain body. So when the kids are feeling depressed or whatever, their pain body is active. And so, oh, there it goes again. And try to explain it to your children and have your family have an understanding of this. So you can do that with the shadow too. This is all cutting edge. This is stuff that needs to be done, but that it's really up to us. This is kind of where we are right now. We're in this place where the people who have been sort of culturally initiated as our leaders can't handle the job of where we are in human consciousness right now. And they just can't handle it. They're not trained for it. They're not thinking out of the box. They're not cutting edge thinkers. The academics are shoved in their little cult and all of that. And you can't put out anything that's too cutting edge because they will slap each other down, or it's not financially viable. Big business believes it's not financially that you should talk down to people and baby them and dumb them down so as that they will eat your stuff or take your products or whatever it is. And so with this whole way of being, it's like, no, people grow up, they become adults, they don't need that junk anymore, and you have to the whole economy is a whole big parasite right now. So it would basically destroy the whole economy if the top level people started thinking about this. And so we have a very kind of upside down world right now in a way. So it's up to us. We have to do this. We have to figure this stuff out for ourselves in our own laboratories of psyche. And we have to come up with our own ethical systems. We have to come up with our own shadow work processes. We have to come up with our own conflict resolution processes. And then we have to try them out, apply the scientific process to them, try them out, and then share them with other people, let other people try them out. We have to do it. It's us. It's up to us. And we have to hold ourselves very, very, we have to make sure that we're doing it at a very high fidelity and in a very clean and with high integrity. And then we have to do it. So that's kind of where we are. And then we have to support each other. And if you see other people that are doing a good job, that are on the path, and they're being honest, and they're being thorough, and they're being straightforward, and they're doing something cutting edge, whatever it is, cutting edge, yeah, you should support them. And I do that for people, and we got to do that for each other. Kind of have to form our own little micro culture that's sort of on the edge of the matrix. It's our own little culture of self-healers, of alchemists that are on the edge of the matrix and kind of support each other. And it's not always easy because the system is not designed for that. Okay, so is there anybody that wants to say anything before we kind of go to the close of this? Because I think 8 more minutes to make it 2 hours, but I think we're kind of closing out, and I think it's been a really good call, and I really thank you guys for coming on. Most of you guys, except for Cynthia, and maybe one other individual, were friends of mine from before, and so I thank you for supporting me. You're doing exactly what I was asking for. You're supporting me. I appreciate that. And if you think that these shows are productive, then feel free to share them with anybody you want to. If you want to download them and cut them up or do anything you want, feel free to do that. Just put the link to the website. That's all great. And you like it. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Yeah. Right. Well, this is just, this is how I always talk. And so now I'm just putting it out. I was going to stream to Facebook also at the same time, but I decided not to. I decided I'll repost stuff to Facebook, but the actual comments and call in and all that kind of stuff, I'm just going to do right on YouTube, just one central place, and kind of forces people to turn off the social media and kind of to commit to however much time you want to spend on the show. Not everybody wants to spend 2 hours, but commit to it. And then if you feel that you're getting, you're spending your 2 hours with this, you want to get your time's worth. And so that's where I'm very open to your suggestions and going into your direction so that I can serve you, so that your 2 hours is worth it. But yeah, I don't like the idea of just floating it on social media. People are like, oh, there he goes again, keep scrolling, No, it's going to be like, if you want this, you're going to have to come to the spot where it's at. But all right, you like the plan. Thank you so much. So right. I'm talking fast and everything because I gotta entertain you guys and fill up the space. But yeah, I got to work out that thing of the very beginning. You didn't hear the problem, but when I put my settings where they're supposed to be, where I can hear, there's music going in the background, as But if I set it to where I can hear the music, then I just hear my voice with like a 5-second delay just coming back through. And I have to figure out where's that coming from, because I've already done the stream 3 times as a test without that problem. And it just showed up. So we didn't talk about the virus tonight. We'll talk about the virus more, the virus. Anyway, so there we go. ShadowTechAlchemy.com, SolutioPodcast.com. If anybody wants to see the movie about Melissa, the trailer is at melissamarimovie.com. My email's on there. You can send me an email. I'll send you a link to the movie. I would love for you to see it and to send me like a little quick review or just your feedback on what it did for you. And I really do want to show that movie to as many people who come on this show, because that will give you a much better understanding of kind of just the culture, the mindset, and about Melissa, because a great deal of what you're hearing is me reiterating Melissa's ethics, Melissa's beliefs, Melissa's work, and she's not here to do that anymore. So and then you get to kind of get a feel for her very Persephonic, we could call it, because I feel like the archetype of Persephone was very active in her psyche. And she had a very kind of just constantly kind of cycling in and out of the underworld kind of life. And then she put it into her art. And she made this incredible music and this incredible performance art out of it. And she had a character that we called the parasite. And so the parasite is essentially like our version of the devil, or we call it the virus. It's the dark side, the destructive aspect of the universe, or of this simulation. And so she did a lot of art and a lot of work with the parasite. And it's very heavy. It's very heavy and very in your face, but very touching and in a way shocking. And that's kind of how she was. Just put it all in your face. She's very shocking and kind of frontal. As a person, she's incredibly just calm and just as a person, she's just very soft and calm, collected. And then she would get on stage and it's like a supernova. It's just so incredible how she was like that. It was just so amazing. But yeah, you get to see all that stuff in the movie. You get to touch her, because I filmed everything. I knew how important she was and how important the work we were doing was. And so I constantly had my iPhone camera going, or an audio recorder going. And I just collected just thousands of hours of stuff. And then I went through that. It took me 6 months to just kind of get a handle on the material. I didn't even look at the audio recordings. I have solo audio recordings too. And I didn't even use those, because I had 10 times more video than I actually used. So I just used video material, because that's what you need for a movie. But I have so much material. And so I just kind of, put together what I thought would tell the story in a way that was coherent. But anyway, so that is there. And is there anything else I need to say? I think that's it. I'm going to keep trying for Tuesday nights, Tuesday at 8 Central Time. And even though it's a little bit of a sacrifice for me, that's okay. And then if it picks up, I'm going to do it on Saturdays too, at like 1 p.m. Central, which would be 11 a.m. Pacific. But I'll do that to get Europeans in here, because Europeans are asleep right now. But if I do it at 1 p.m. Central, that'll be like 7 to 8 p.m. in Europe. And so we'll be able to get some Europeans in there. But right now, I think we're mainly concentrating on the American, South American, or just people who are in the Americas time zones. So, okay, thank you all. And I will see you around, and I will see you next Tuesday, same time. And everybody have a Merry Christmas. And God bless you all. Bye for now. Bye for now. Let's see, how do we do this?